Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is, just get that dialed in there. It is Thursday, February the 6th, 2025. It's another Technical Alpha podcast. Glad you could join us today. Let's see, got another great show lined up for you as always in this bitterly cold time of year. And evidently, from what my phone told me not long ago, possibly even, unfortunately, a bit on the snowy side, Mr. Black. We might be getting some more of the white stuff. I'm not talking about the cocaine. I'm talking about stuff you get a shovel in your driveway, not shovel into your nose. It is a winter after all. You know, we had such a long run of absolutely no snow. Nothing. Not a whisper. And now it appears that it wants to make up for lost time. And so as long as it's not like 30 freaking centimeters of snow, fine enough. That's fine. And honestly, it's so cold that a lot of the snow we've been getting, with the exception of maybe a couple of times in this last week where the temperatures really like kind of came up, the snow has been so light I don't really care all that much, to be honest. As you go out there and you like you're not even shoveling snow at that point. You could blow it with your mouth, go outside, and leave the driveway. And that's way better than 30 inches of wet, heavy, back-breaking bullshit. Although I will say the one thing we're fighting more this year because of the temperatures, especially the temperature swings, ice. Holy shit. My driveway I've almost died 4 times in the last 2 weeks. It's crazy out there. And it's been so cold. You know, some of the you know, the salt and what you can get, it only works to a certain temperature, and then you're just putting it on there and hoping and praying. But a couple of days this week is too cold. You put ice melt out there, and it wasn't doing shit. It's just sitting there not doing dick all. But it is the way of life here. And again, as long as I don't shovel it, bring it on. I will freeze my tuchus off in this household for months if I don't have to shovel the snow. But enough about that. Before we get started on another wonderful Technical Alpha podcast, Mr. Black, most important question of the week. How's your week?
It's another week, man. I didn't do anything. I didn't really
another
do
standard
much of anything,
go.
So
Lots more
week,
Marvel Rivals though. You were playing solo queue Marvel Rivals before the podcast. I was putting the list and stuff together, and I look over at Discord, and when I come back down after getting my water. Right, so how this works in the podcast, right? When we get the stream started up or whatever, I've got Discord up and whatnot. You know, I give the video call to Jeff, and I get down and before I actually start the theme song or whatever, I give the thumbs up. And I wait for his return on the thumbs up. That's the go time. Jeff's thumbs up today was so fucking unenthusiastic and sarcastic looking. I knew he had the shittiest fucking solo queue experience. You're back in platinum, aren't you?
Oh yeah, I'm there. I just hate it, man. I hate it. Anyway, don't even get me started, bro. I'll be in a shit mood for this whole podcast. So
it's all right. We'll get you back up. How bad was the fall? How bad was it? Was it rough?
Well, it's not that bad. I'm like 2 games off.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, when you first break a barrier to any league and how easy it is to lose 2 or 3 games in a row, it's like every time I've broken a barrier, I'm always backsliding until I can get far enough in that it gets harder and harder for the game to really stick it to you. But yeah, it's true. It's tough. It's tough out there on those streets. It's a rough one, for sure. But yeah, otherwise. But despite that, you have clearly been enjoying Marvel Rivals. This is the most I have seen you play a game off of a stream in a very long time. There's a lot of gaming, hardcore gaming, being done over there right now. And you know, I've been playing a lot of it too. Obviously, I've been streaming. I haven't gotten to the point where I'm playing it offline, but I'm definitely streaming a lot of it. And I also, you know, I've been enjoying myself and you know, now that you know, I mean, it's toxic the whole way up the ladder. That's always the case. But after having been mired in silver and gold and platinum and whatnot, diamond seems like the first barrier where the toxicity drops a little bit. People play their roles a little bit more frequently. It's not as much of a fight in the early game of like who's going to be playing what, and when, and that takes a lot of the strain out of it. And then generally speaking, at Diamond, it feels like more people know more nuance about the game itself, and not just I know my character and I go straight line. So that's nice. And I know we were playing 4-stack last night, you and I and Hallie and Fox. And we were all in Diamond at that. Well, Hallie was Plat 1 and everyone else was in Diamond at that point. And so pretty much everyone we're playing with is Diamond. And the games are intense. You get up there and it gets a lot more intense. You hit Diamond, and especially when you're 4-stacking, because you're against other people that are coordinated. They're also typically 2, 3, 4 manning as well. And the game gets a lot more difficult, but that gets exciting, because sometimes in solo queue, it seems to be a lot of you're either rolling the other team or you are the one being rolled. And it's not as frequent that you get like the close nail biter, every man just giving it every fucking thing that they've got to, you know, get it across the line and make the comeback. And I think it was the last game we played against 2 guys who were Grandmaster in a duo or a trio. And that was a crazy game. Because I mean, the first round they put it to us bad. They had a Namor that was just face fucking our whole team mercilessly. No lube, raw dog. It was bad. Man hit 47% of every fucking spear he threw, and it was bad. It was a rough go. And then you know, we were all a little demoralized, but then we got together and we knew we weren't going to win, but we wanted to put. You know, we didn't want to give it to them easy. And we got all the way to that last fucking push before they finally shut us down. And, you know, that was where, you know, that's where the game is now getting, you know, a little bit more fun now. Is, you know, it's a challenge. You get a group of guys together that everyone within reason knows what's going on. And you know, it's a good fucking game. There's a reason why it's so popular, and it's not just because, you know, the ass and tits are out for Harambe, although that plays a part for sure. It's just a really well-made video game right now. It has problems, certainly, but the problems are the same problems other competitive games face, and I don't think that they're handling them any worse than anyone else, and in some cases, I think they're handling them better. So I've been, definitely enjoying that, and Are you going to, after we've done the podcast and StarCraft casting, are you going to try to get back on there, get back in? Is the grind continuing? Yeah.
maybe we'll see. I'm a little tired today, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. I know you want to try a new character or two soon too. That would be, you know, that's what I was doing yesterday too before we were queuing. I was playing around with Venom and Penny. Trying to expand my tank repertoire, because I've got lots of healers under my belt and a couple of DPS, but I wanted to, you know, DPS is almost always taken, and I don't really feel like fighting people for DPS, so I'm happy if I can lock down healing and tanking, with my healing being priority and tanking being secondary. So I was playing some Venom. Venom's fun, janky as fuck, but fun. And Penny, I think, is a little slept on at the moment. She's picking up a little bit more in the higher leagues, apparently, more recently, but there's a lot going on there with Penny that I think a lot of people are missing, because they're trying to treat her like a traditional tank, and I don't think that's how you should play her at all, but it'll be fun to see it as time goes on. Either way, that was also my week, so both of us playing lots and lots of Marvel Rivals crashing out, screaming obscenities constantly. But for me, thankfully, muting the in-game chat so that I don't have to hear toddlers screaming in the background, dropping N-bombs. There's a go. Where's the barometer, Mr. Black? You've been playing a lot with the microphone on.
Only twice.
Only twice? Hey, that's pretty good.
Only
That's
twice.
pretty good.
It's pretty good.
That's a good ratio.
And I'm pretty sure one of them was black. So.
Oh, okay. So it was just,
Yes.
Slightly more acceptable.
One
you
of
still
them
don't have to
definitely
hear
wasn't black. Yeah, one of them definitely wasn't black. Like he summoned it from like his ancestors that used to own us, and he went to a dark place. He was mad, bro. Holy shit!
It was the hardest of ours. Just the absolute.
It was a hard R, bro. It was a hard R.
Oh shit! Yeah, it's just the way it is. But so far I'm impressed. I'm impressed that it hasn't happened more because it's just there. It is. It's like League. It is toxic as fuck. Like it's crazy toxic. But that just seems to be the way it goes. Either way, we got a couple of things that we got lined up to talk about today. Most of it's kind of just. It's all pretty much just kind of a quick news bit. There wasn't any like really major drops this week, so it's not any super, at least not planned deep dive on any of these news pieces specifically. First up, another, we've been waiting for more and more of the Xbox first-party titles to make their way onto other platforms, be it PlayStation or Nintendo, or even more to the PC than they already have. And the big one this week was Forza Horizon 5, and that one is heading on over to the PlayStation. And of course, as it has been up to this point, and will continue to be, I'm sure, for a long while, every time a new first-party or used to be first-party Xbox title gets released on the PlayStation, it is just a whole bunch of people losing their minds over it. That being said, I think this is fantastic for Forza because Forza Horizon is, in my opinion, bar none, the best racing game on the planet right now, unless you're somebody who is very specifically looking for a racing sim, like a hardcore racing sim. The physics in Horizon 5 are more than good enough for bringing out a wheel and tooling around if you're into the wheel racing. But if you're like, Assetto Corsica or whatever, or the similar pure racing sims, like Mr. Black, you have a racing fucking cage coming in so that you can enjoy the sweet sounds of engines going around Laguna Seca while spinning out, turning off your traction control. It's basically the best thing that you've got, and it's a pure, fun, accessible racing game. And I think a lot of people are going to pick this up on the PlayStation. I think it's going to boost the numbers a lot. It did huge numbers already as it is, but on PlayStation I think it will do well. And there's kind of a spot on the PlayStation for it, because really the only major racing game still within reason, other than like the couple of Ubisoft ones that have come out over time, it's just Gran Turismo. It's all that's there. And that's not Gran Turismo in modern era is kind of in an odd spot, because back in the day when Mr. Black and I were young gentlemen, and we played the original Gran Turismo and Gran Turismo 2 and A-Spec, all the other shit that came out after. Back then, those were racing sims, in the sense that like that was what they were going for, was a simulation racing experience, tire wear, damage modeling, at least as far as the engine and stuff was concerned. But in modern times, Gran Turismo is less of a pure racing sim, and it's more like a simcade, which is like the simulation arcade crossover. But it's definitely more of a simulation experience, and I think Horizon will fit a bill that the platform doesn't really have right now, that it is also simcade, but it's more arcade than simulation. And I just think it's a much more kind of, like, generally speaking, accessible and fun kind of experience for more people that would be interested. either way, I'll be very interested to see how those do. But lots of people, like, you know, every time this comes up, it's another discussion about Xbox games and other things. I think people just need to let it go. It's over. It's done. Xbox is putting these games on platforms, whether you like it or not. And in reality, while it is perhaps to a degree bad for their own console sales, from like a physical console perspective, if you are trying to lock down stuff to a console, it's great news for the developers. I mean, you can't see it any other way. The developers are getting access to another massive tens of millions of console market that they didn't have access to before. And with games costing as much money as they do now, you know, it's very rare for a singular developer making a singular game to be able to adequately recoup costs on one platform, let alone Xbox. I mean, that shit, you need the PC edition to float that shit. Well, to this point. And so I think it's great news all around. And I think PlayStation, you're seeing that as well. It's coming to the PC, a lot of their games. And it's just a necessity. So I think at this point, just enjoy your video games. And if a console suits your fancy, go for it. But, you know, fuck me, dude. It does still feel weird. It's gonna. I don't think this is gonna. You know, for people who are younger, I don't think this is gonna feel weird at all. Maybe like Gen Alpha, and then whoever comes after, the unfortunate group called Gen Beta. I still think we should probably skip that because that's just too memeable. You can't give them that kind of ammunition. That's fucked up. But that's going to be their normal, right? Games just available on pretty much every platform. They're not going to give a fuck. But for me, as the old head, it's weird because for our world, for the majority of our life, consoles were siloed, right? It was like you always had third-party games, but you bought consoles because they had specific titles that you were really interested in, and it was as time went on, other than like graphical fidelity, as graphical fidelity kind of homogenized and all the consoles looked within reason fucking identical with the exception of Nintendo, it became like, what games are there? What am I getting on the PlayStation that I'm not getting on the Xbox? What am I getting on the Xbox that I'm not getting on the PlayStation? Or as you've brought up many times over the past, what are my friends buying? You know, what multiplayer games are we, as multiplayer became more popular, what one or two games are we playing together? If it is a third party like Call of Duty, where's everyone playing Call of Duty right now? That kind of an idea. And now we're getting closer and closer to games costing so much money. You got these AAA titles costing $200, $300, $400 million, which is fucking crazy to begin with. You have to sell a shitload of copies. You have no choice. Like, what the fuck are you gonna do? Like, people are getting angry at these developers and stuff. Like, how dare you put this game on more platforms? It's like, well, shit, dude. There's only like fucking 5 of you. We need more than 5. Be serious. But it is still very weird. At least for me. It does feel odd. And I will miss it a little bit to some degree, because it is nice to have differentiating factors for products available. And we're definitely in an interesting time where the PC market is no longer the value add that it was before. Everything is starting in the PC market is starting to cost a goddamn fortune. And so consoles are going to start looking real good again, Mr. Black. They had a bit of a weird era there where it wasn't like you could look at it and be like, okay, I could do that, but I could build a PC for not much more money and get 90% of everything that I want game-wise and have a way better, like, overall experience visually. But holy fuck, dude. If a console comes out and all it costs, and even, I can't believe I'm saying this, but if a console only costs $800 and the graphics card to match it by itself with no other parts is $800, it's gonna start getting real hard to look at the PC and go, yeah, let's go that direction. Whereas before, you actually had some choices, but it seems like it's less the case. If you were a younger gentleman, Mr. Black, and it's going to be hard to put yourself in this mindset because we're old men. If you were a younger person right now, and you had some level of disposable income, let's say they were like you and I, and they were industrious, and they shoveled like 48,000 driveways for $10 and you just sprint shoveled every driveway to get them all as much volume in a day as you could. Now you got some money. Are you trying to build a gaming PC right now, or are you buying a console in the current market? What do you think young Jeff would be doing right now with his spare dollarinos? If he had some spare dollarinos, do you think that he is a console gamer, or do you think that he is a Fortnite kitty on a Hot Wheels PC?
I mean, I'm doing what everybody does. I'm buying the PC, and if I can't afford it, I'm putting it on a credit card and I'm making monthly payments. Like, I think you grossly underestimate
the ability for people to just put it on a credit card. And
yeah. I mean, do you really believe that all these young people are going out and buying these PCs in just cash?
No, of course.
Like they're gonna go put it on their credit cards, or they're gonna use their student loans, or they're gonna ask for stuff for Christmas, or
so this is somebody older than 16 who has a credit card. But if we were buying consoles before we were 16.
I mean, I wasn't. You were.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
My parents were buying my shit, dude, at Christmas time. I didn't have.
So are you asking your parents for a PC instead? Is that the idea?
I didn't have fiscally responsible parents that fucking got me to save money and go out and work in the summertime and whatever. Like I went out and shoveled, like you said, or I raked leaves or whatever. But I would like blow that money instantaneously. So yeah, dude. You keep making these arguments, like you always look at it from your point of view because you think of it in a very specific manner. But the vast majority of the planet, or at least everyday people, if they want something, dude, they're just gonna go get it. Yes, money is a factor, but when it comes to escapism and it comes to feeling connected and having that time to just let go of the relationships, the work, the drama, the life, and to lose yourself, there is no dollar figure really that people aren't willing to spend, and they will find the money. They might not be able to go out and buy a brand new $4,000 graphics card and all this stuff, because the reality is you don't need all of that. All you need to do is have a reasonable graphics card. Literally, you can buy a 1080 and fucking play games and have fun. Like, you're not going to be able to buy the brand new game and fucking max it out on all the fucking settings and shit. But, not every gamer even gives a fuck about that. They just want to play games and escape. So, it doesn't matter if, I can guarantee you, if the next generation consoles came out and they were 500 Canadian dollars, it is not going to persuade PC gamers to go and opt to buy consoles instead of PCs. They may grab a console on top of the PC and just have that there, but there is not going to be this, and there will, of course, there'll be the minority people that will think like you and that will weigh the pros and cons and that are a little bit more responsible and things like that in terms of what they do with their money. But the vast majority of people, they're going to go buy whatever the fuck they want to buy. And if that means they're going to buy a console that could literally cost 500 Canadian dollars or $122 USD in comparison to the fucking 500 Canadian dollars. Thank you, Justin. If they decide to do that, they are still going to want to buy the PC, even if the PC is costing them 2,500 Canadian dollars. Like, dude, it's the internet, man. Like, people, it's not just about gaming. Like, people rationalize these things way more. They don't just look at it from a gaming standpoint. They do everything on there. They watch Twitch. They watch YouTube. Some of them might work from a PC. They play games on the PC. They do social media on the PC. They might create content with the PC. They interact with everybody. They have Discord. Who wants to fucking use Discord 24/7 on your phone? You use it on the go. But it's 2025, man. Everybody's getting a PC, brother. Even if you're not a gamer, they're still going to have a PC, and it's still likely going to have a pretty good graphics card in it. Or like long gone the days. Like you go to Best Buy and just buy a generic big box PC, and you're still gonna get a pretty good graphics card to basically run any game that you want to run. You might not be able to max it, but you're still gonna have the ability to game. People are just gonna do what they're gonna do. So yeah, Jeff, young Jeff, old Jeff, not so old Jeff, I'm buying a PC every time. And if there's enough value, then I will also buy a console and it'll sit and barely get played. But if it's cheap enough to have the option, especially look at Blu-ray players. They don't really exist anymore, right? They have the odd one. I actually was at Best Buy a week ago and I was in the Blu-ray section because I was like, I wonder if they still make these fucking machines. Like, who the fuck uses Blu-rays?
They don't make them often anymore.
No, but they make them, and they're expensive. Like they're not like $60. They're like the ones I was looking at was $200 to $300 for a Blu-ray player.
And that's
why
cheap.
in the fuck wouldn't you just and that's cheap. Why in the fuck wouldn't you just go buy a PlayStation?
Well, the PS5 doesn't have Blu-ray anymore.
So, well, I mean,
that was a weird choice, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, even who uses Blu-rays in 2025 at this point? Not many people. Not many. I mean, it's all digital now, right? But it's the same. I mean, that was the argument that we used to use before. When you're in the Blu-ray market, it used to be like, now this was like, 15 years ago. But when you're in the Blu-ray market, it's like, okay, well, I can go buy a Blu-ray player. Back then, you could probably get one for $150. It might be slower and not as good, but it'll do the job. Or you could go buy a console for twice the price and then still have your gaming stuff, and it's all there in one thing. It's less machines that you got to have, all this stuff. PC is sort of the same thing. I don't even consider, as crazy as it sounds, I don't even consider a PC in competition with consoles. It's its own beast. It's its own thing. The console wars happen between the consoles, and then there was the master race, always. And so, if people are going to have PCs always, dude, it's in 10 years, graphics cards are going to be $8-9 grand, right? They just will. And people will buy them. People will buy them. They will be sold out, bro. That's what's going to happen. There's no dollar figure. People are going to want what they want. Imagine living your life without a PC. Even if you were not, you didn't do this.
We're moving beyond part of what I was saying. I'm not saying that you're choosing between a console and a PC, and that in terms of like, you're not going to have a PC in the household of some description. But there is a stark contrast between we have a PC in the household that is designed to do your everyday whatever the fuck things that can be bought for anywhere between $400 and $900, and then a gaming PC that the graphics card by itself is the same price as the entirety of just a regular PC that does everything else in a household that the average family actually makes use of it for, and then just having a console in the house for the gaming purposes. There is definitely, depending on what that PC is, an argument to be made that if you already have some PC that's been built in the last, and it's not like locked up. Like if you buy something from Best Buy, sometimes it can be difficult or something, depending on the motherboards they use, they're not the same as the ones that you would buy aftermarket. But you can make the argument that, okay, you already have a PC, it's been built in the last 3 years, so to make it more gaming capable to match a console or better, you just have to buy the one part, and it would be the equivalent of buying a console anyway, so why not just have the PC? So yeah, I agree. I'm not making a case to say don't have a PC in the household. That's fucking inane. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, like, from a gamer standpoint, if somebody has to choose between buying a console for $800 or going to buy a graphics card for $800, and they want a game, they're gonna buy that graphics card. They're just gonna go buy that graphics card. They're just not like, and I even truly believe that even that analogy or that example is a pretty far-fetched one, because you don't even have to go out and spend $800 on a graphics card. The vast majority of PCs that exist today and have existed for the last 5 to 7 years, you can play virtually any game you want on those PCs. You just might not be able to play them max the tits. I mean, it's just the way they are.
Depending on what it was built with, yes and no.
Okay, but I mean, 95% of them, you're going to be able to play whatever the fuck you want to play. It's just the way it is. just maybe not at the level that you know, would love. And that boils down to how much money you're willing to spend. So,
Yeah.
I mean, people spending $4,000 on a graphics card or even $2,000 on a graphics card, it's just insanity. It's just insane. You don't need all that. You don't. There's very few people that do. Very
No,
few.
of course not. Yeah.
So, you know, it's just all it is a big dick swinging contest. The amount of the amount of secondhand GPUs that you can buy on Facebook Marketplace or Kijiji, Craigslist, eBay for pennies on the dollar, because everybody's upgrading their graphics card every fucking year. You can buy a very good graphics card for pretty cheap. Use that
Quotation
loosely,
marks, yeah.
but
yeah.
and get the job done. You know, you just can't.
Yeah, it's a like I think about when I built my first PC or bought my own first PC, and you know, we were still obviously buying and playing mostly on the consoles and dabbling in PC gaming. And obviously PC gaming now is much different than it was back then. Like dramatically
it was still
different than it was
consoles back then. Yeah, it was like it was mainly consoles, not mainly PC.
Yeah, PC was like PCs were almost like you went to PCs to play specific genres that didn't exist on consoles, right? So like your MMORPGs there was some on a console, but in reality it was a PC market. Or specific types of RPGs were almost exclusively
RTSs.
on a PC. RTSs almost exclusively. And if you've played StarCraft 64, you know why they were exclusively on PC. Yeah, so it was different. It was definitely different at the time, and it's definitely changed dramatically now. And it's true. And I asked that question because it is a two-front thing that console markets are fighting right now in terms of relevancy. Is many people do already have, to some degree, especially if you're in a household that is already a gaming household, like one or more people in the household are already a gamer to some degree. There is an increased market share in terms of people who are already in possession of some level of a gaming PC that is upgradable to some degree without having to rebuild the whole machine. And in those instances, you are now fighting the difference between what is the cost of the singular part or two that they need to buy to match or beat your new console versus buying the console and not having to deal with all the other extracurriculars that comes along with being a PC gamer. And there are still some differentiating factors for some people where they're not tech savvy at all, and they don't want to have to deal with it, so they go with a console because they don't want to have to go through the song and dance of the secondhand PC market part market, or putting the PC together, or even having somebody else do it, or picking the right parts. It's a minefield. There's a ton of people that are still in that category. And honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that we have like these new integrated system developers, so like Starforge and Stints Built and these other kind of boutique online PC builders where you're buying one of their pre-built kind of jobs that are using aftermarket parts that you would yourself be able to usually buy anyway, and building it for you and installing firmware and doing all that. Despite the high premium on those PCs, that's a really important step for PC gaming, because without that is a huge hurdle for people, especially younger people. Like, sometimes it's hard for me to remember or to remind myself that there are a lot of like Gen Z and Alpha kids who have no idea how to use a computer. Like, they're fucking lost. They're lost on a computer. They don't know about they don't even know about right-click sub-menus and shit. Like, they're completely computer illiterate because their whole life is this. It's not a computer. Everything is a phone, touchscreen, tablet environment. You watch, you have with Kai, and maybe he did this too, but when we had the kids over for Christmas, those kids walked up to my TV while it was playing some shit and were pressing it because they thought that they could fucking like a phone interact with the TV as an interface. Like, that's their brain is wired And now I got to wipe, kitty fingerprints off the TV, but it's because they think that they're like, oh, this is just a really big phone. If I want to watch Bluey, I press the fucking this side of the screen and it goes backwards, and I can like click another. Like their whole brain's wired for that. You put them in front of a computer and they're like, ah, ah, they don't know what the fuck is going on. It's a very millennial experience where we went through young PC up through modern PC, where we are way more integrated in that environment. And they're way less. And so there is still this barrier. Now, that being said, again, that's what those system integrators really make a big difference for. But they get very costly. I'll be very interested to see, not this generation, but how the next generation of consoles, because we're still getting them, we know that, how they differentiate themselves from the PC market, which keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. More and more people getting involved with it. It will be very intriguing to see how they differentiate themselves and what kind of pricing structure they come up with. Are they going to try to like sell them for really cheap so that it's like a fucking nearly no-brainer, and then make their money on services like Game Pass, shit like that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they are going to differentiate themselves. I think what consoles are doing is they're becoming more like PCs. And what they need to do is they need to almost give you a full-blown PC experience, but on a console, so that you're almost tricking the consumer to say, hey, well, this is cheaper, and I can do the exact same things. It looks just as good. It runs just as good. I can use all my favorite apps. I can watch my Twitch. I can watch my YouTube. My Amazon Prime shit's on there. I can order stuff online. I can do it all. That's what's going to happen. And it's going to happen more and more and more, simply from the fact that it's going to come a time where you're not even going to have physical media anymore. And it's quite literally going to be like, who buys PC games? Like the discs? No one.
Well, they don't exist because PC is like well beyond, and even consoles are basically well beyond that at this point, right?
Correct. That's why it's not about differentiating. They need to become more like the PC. And they have to, they basically have to be a PC.
What I mean is they have to pitch themselves like a PC in terms of their capabilities, but the differentiating would be it's everything a PC would do, but it's easier. Like the differentiating factor is always what the console has been between PC and console is it's everything the PC would provide you from a gaming perspective, and perhaps more as consoles integrate more and more apps and features, but without the headaches that come with maintaining and making all of that happen on a PC as an administrator of the machine. So, like, that's the differentiator. But how do you convince people that that's worth the jump and not as just an additive market? Although at the end of the day, I guess they don't care as long as they sell the console, so it doesn't matter what they do with that.
Well, they need to come out. They need to bring out a console with a controller, but then they also need to have the ability to buy a keyboard and mouse.
The Nintendo Switch 2 turn the controller mouse function.
Why not? But why not? What does it hurt them? Come out with your console and then
PlayStation
and
had
then
that in the past. They had the keyboard mouse thing.
Yeah, but I mean that wasn't directed at PC gamers, right? That was more of a function of, are you tired of like using your controller to type in your username and your email and all this other shit? Like maybe there was,
remember
you could play Wheel of Fortune.
The Xbox
you know what I mean?
Remember you could get that on the 360?
Yes, exactly. That's what that was for. But if they actually come out and just still sell your console, and it doesn't even need to come with it, but have the option to literally buy a PlayStation mouse and keyboard, a Microsoft mouse and keyboard, and you can set it up anywhere. You can literally have it so that your console is sitting underneath your computer desk, on the side of your computer desk, and you can hook up your monitor to it just like you can with your PC. You got a keyboard and mouse, or if you want to kick back with a controller and do your controller gaming, you can. And then they need to make the advertisement of basically a PC gamer playing a console. Right? Like it don't matter anymore, and advertise that, hey, it's a one-stop shop. It's boom, there you go. If they can do that,
that's an interesting idea Because, like, if you think about it, when I mentioned the integrated systems people, like the Starforges and everything else, you know, they're doing what you're describing. It's just that they can't do it at scale the way Sony or
Correct.
Microsoft could. So it's always going to be more expensive. And Sony and
Yep.
Microsoft have their own operating systems built for their consoles, really. They're built on top of something else, but they're their own operating system environment. They could feasibly, as you're saying, just turn into a glorified like integrated systems developer where they are quite literally PCs with an Xbox OS and a PlayStation OS.
Yes.
And you still get your Discord, you still get your social media, you still get all of that. The core gamer functionality of what a PC is. Maybe you're not doing fucking your homework on the bitch, but everything else, the entertainment side, all of that stuff, you're watching Twitch, you're watching YouTube, you're on Discord, you're fucking posting on TikTok.
It's for
or fucking whatever.
gamers. It's a gamers. It's a gaming box. It's what.
But
it's a
under the hood,
console.
it's a PC.
It's a PC.
Yeah.
If you can do that, now you actually are competing with PCs because you're making it cheaper. You know, it might cost a little bit more. Maybe that console costs $1,100, $1,200, right?
Yeah.
But it's still, if you can have that type of game and have high quality gaming experience for the next 7 to 10 years on that one thing without any upgrades, dude. And you can, and if you hate PC gaming, guess what? It's still a console. You just play it like you normally would. Done. I think now you'd be onto something. But until that happens, which I've always been under the camp that I don't think consoles are going to be here too much longer. I think we're getting to the point where they're just going to become PCs. I mean, they're virtually almost there now without a keyboard and mouse. So, and you can still connect a keyboard and a mouse to your console today if you want to, right? It's just not, you know, the UI isn't really built for it. They'd have to, you know, build up some stuff. I mean, dude, it's Microsoft. You could quite literally put Microsoft on your Xbox. Literally. You own them.
Well, I wouldn't. And I wouldn't do that because that's like too much. It's too heavy. Like that's too much. It's too much operating system for what they would need.
Well, but you don't. Yeah, but you don't. Yeah, but you don't need to have Microsoft 11. You can put Microsoft on there, a console version, and it would make it would say, you know, Xbox X Microsoft, and it would do something in the brains of every console gamer or PC gamer. Go, wow, they're actually making a PC console. You don't need to actually have Windows like this, but they could create a Windows specifically tailored for that system. I mean,
that's kind of what they have now, right? If I'm correct, and Track can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe both PlayStation's operating system and Microsoft's operating system for the Xbox are both built on top of Linux. Which is for a reason, because you want to use something like Linux because it is as free of bloat as possible to maximize the performance of the console that it's put on. So they're already mostly there. It's not you can develop apps for, like, Discord's already there, for example, or other apps that are already there, social media, they're there. It's just that they're kind of caught in a weird middle ground where it still kind of feels like a console environment. But you could do what you're saying within their current operating systems. It would just be a UI change to some degree to make that happen, and that would be basically it. And I think that there is value in that. And I do suspect that there's a good chance that that's where it goes. You see right now, for example, with Steam Deck or Steam Big Picture Mode, where on your PC, if you really wanted to turn your PC into what feels like a console, you open up Steam and you just turn it on in Big Picture Mode, and it acts. You know, there's a UI that comes up that's very much.
Real quick. Keep the app, and I gotta run upstairs.
Yeah. So you get in Steam Big Picture Mode, you get essentially that with your PC right now. You turn it into what is essentially a console, at least when you turn that on. And if you want, you can even build out a PC that runs Steam OS. I can shift myself in my chair. Steam OS. And get that same kind of or similar experience. Now, again, it's not perfect, and everything is kind of mired and caught between two worlds. But as you know, things move forward in a more app centric environment, both in even in a Windows environment, not even to say in a console operating system environment, I think that this is definitely a direction in which they are likely to go. And I still just think that it is a there's no reason to build any product really if you can't differentiate yourself, because if you can't differentiate yourself, you will die. Differentiation doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be in the form of some sort of physical or tangible nature, or even intangible, or it can be both or otherwise. It can be price differentiation. It can be operating system differentiation. It can be for the instance of consoles for a long time, even amongst other consoles, it was first party titles. Differentiation comes in all different shapes and forms. And I think that for whatever next consoles that PlayStation and Xbox deliver, which we know they both are doing at least one more round of these, and PlayStation seems dedicated to continuing on even beyond that, it does feel like they do want to move more in that direction, and then just make sure that people understand that they can get as close to everything that they would get in a gaming PC for cheaper and easier from a user experience perspective. It's kind of like why it's difficult to convince a Apple iPhone user to switch to Android, and vice versa to some degree. But Apple is largely differentiated on brand identity and perceived or marketed ease of use, and much more, kind of more specialized to do a very specific thing, whereas Android as a brand is differentiating itself in the opposite, where it is open source, available for interpretation, heavily customizable, but can to some degree expect more of its user because of that. And so that's how they're differentiating. And I think with consoles, I think it would behoove them to move in that direction of differentiating based on, continuing to differentiate based on the simple fact that a console, even for me, somebody who is a now many years hardcore PC gamer, if I could get 90% of what I get out of my gaming PC in a console environment and not have to dick around endlessly with the Windows environment and constantly juggling and managing graphics drivers depending on which game is out now, which driver is working best with what game, what etc. And just the myriad ways in which various points of failure for hardware can happen. Even with all of my knowledge in building a million PCs now in my life, and all that I know, if I can get 90+% of that in a console, that's a really tempting offer. Like a really tempting offer. Like graphics cards right now, one of the things that Mr. Black doesn't realize is that the secondary market for graphics cards is not all that great unless you know what you're looking for and you know how to avoid pitfalls. Because the graphics cards for the last 5 or 6 years have been heavily, many of them in certain generations of bands, especially of NVIDIA cards, abused in crypto mining and otherwise. And sometimes it's hard to get a card even at a decent price that is not going to just die on you in relatively short order. It can be a minefield. Like a PC building is already a minefield for the average user. Getting into the secondary market with no warranties, no nothing, and not really being able to know what happened to that thing or what it was used for any period of time is daunting and a risky endeavor. And now with new graphics cards coming out, even the mid-ground, the stuff that's targeting, like, let's say 1440p, those are $599 US graphics cards before any tax. And that's a lot of money. That's the cost of a console, just for the graphics card. And so again, like I was saying before, unless you have a PC that's been built in the last, let's say, 5 years, 6 if you're on an AMD platform like AM4 and you're real lucky, that you're on AM4 because of the extensibility that AMD built into that platform. You can have a value judgment on that one, but you know, the fact that there are still so many consoles being sold and the PC market is growing, I think that still stands to reason that there is a huge market for people who do not want to contend with all that comes with PC gaming. It is challenging. I mean, anyone that's built their own PC themselves will know how challenging that it can be, even if you know what you're doing. And so when you separate yourself from all of your knowledge and look at people who are just buying stuff, it can even be difficult. I mean, let me put it this way, as Mr. Black is still upstairs. Who's bought a laptop in the last 10 years? I mean, they're very obviously laptops very popular. I'm not trying to say they're not, but but in terms of, do you know how? I'm sure many of you know how impossible it is to not get ripped off in the laptop market. It's insane. You could have two laptops that present to be the exact same thing, and one is archaic compared to the other, and they're identically priced, and they're both sold as brand new things. Like the knowledge that you need to buy a laptop and not get dramatically ripped off, and when I say ripped off, I mean in the hundreds or thousands of dollars in some instances, like huge. It's crazy. I even hate it. Like when I went laptop shopping for my parents to replace their old laptop, I had to basically relearn and deep dive on every single fucking piece of what's going on in all top laptop brands and the PC and like the CPU market in laptops, what all of the monikers stand for, which are North America, which are European centric, some are Canadian specific, some are rebadges of old ones, but then they cost $200 more. You can get the same thing in the same generation laptop, but it's the older processor, but they market down to it. It is a fucking nut house. It's crazy. And so there's always, I think, a space to say, I can get you 90 or even 100% of what you want. I can do it for half as much money or less, and you don't have to have any of those headaches. If you communicate that to people, that's a fucking powerful marketing campaign, in my opinion. I don't know, like, if I'm a consumer, shit, dude. Like, just like even if if you're speaking about hardcore PC gamers, that is in my opinion, that's still a niche market. I would consider myself a hardcore PC gamer. I build all my own PCs. I build all of my friends' PCs. I build all of Jeff's PCs. I maintain Jeff's PC. I do all of this shit constantly. I'm a hardcore PC gamer. And there is still, in my opinion, I would still be tempted to buy into consoles, especially if this wasn't my job that I've been doing for years, to avoid the fucking headaches and save myself a whole hell of a lot of money. I mean, and Mr. Black's still gone, by the way. There's a whole other side discussion that I would have, on my own if it wasn't Jeff would fall asleep. But as we talked about in the last while with the new series of graphics cards out of NVIDIA, and they're giving you less for more money, and as more time goes on, and it's more dependent upon the generation of frames and not raw raster, consoles become even more of a viable option because fuck it, you're just if we're going to be perpetually stuck at 1080p 60 as a benchmark or 1440 60 as a benchmark, then like hardcore PC gaming almost doesn't mean anything until you spend $3,000 or $4,000. Unless you know exactly what you're doing and you can hunt parts like crazy and get the absolute best deal. Great example, Mr. Miyagi, legendary fucking individual here in the community, good friend, love the guy to death. doesn't know a damn thing about PCs, came to me, he said, I need to buy a new computer. What am I looking at? I need a pre-built. I don't want to have to worry about building it myself. Went and found on Starforge, figured it out, got a good deal on one, but the premium for that is fucking huge. Huge. I could have, if I was his neighbor, I could have built his PC that he bought from them and saved him like $2,000. Just buying them off the shelf and putting them together myself. But I'm not his neighbor. And he just wanted to, no headache. But it's like you get a warranty. It's already, the firmware is all handled for you. The BIOS updates are all handled for you. And so that's what I was mentioning before. Like, Sony and Microsoft have scale that these system integrators don't have, especially Microsoft. So, like, what costs, you get 80% of the performance of some of the higher end integrated systems for $1,000 or less, and that shit's crazy. That goes hard as hell. You got to be able, if you can't market that, then you're lost in the sauce. I think it's crazy. I'll read a couple of things in chat here while we're waiting for Mr. Black to get back. Hopefully everything is okay. It's uncommon for him to be gone this long. He got a message on his phone. He went upstairs. I know Kayla and Kai have been ill in the last few days. Let me just read here what we got here. That's why people buy Macs, get this model or nothing. Yeah, I mean, even Macs can get a little bit complex, but they're not nearly as bad as laptops, because it's its own self-contained, vertical. It's all Mac, right? So it's much harder. Now you pay a huge price premium, but again, that's the idea. That's why you're spending that money, right? You're just buying the Mac, and you're done. Toonie, love you guys from Germany. Keep doing what you're doing, and thanks for all the laughs. Hey, I appreciate that, Toonie. Thank you very much, brother. Hope you're enjoying yourself as always. Build a machine over time. I built a PC over time. No need to buy new systems for years. Yeah. So again, like that's what I do, and that's what people who eventually learn or know enough do. Right? You typically wait until you're halfway through a PC, like a generational thing, right? So we're on AM5 now or whatever, and Intel's on whatever. I can't even keep up with Intel's naming conventions anymore. They fucking lost the sauce. But the you buy like midway through, you buy upper mid to high end for certain parts. Motherboard to some degree, power supply, etc. So that stuff like the CPU, if you're lucky, and again, you're not with Intel, and they allow you to put more than one CPU in a fucking socket over the course of 5 years, so that you can swap a CPU, GPU, get a little bit more RAM, whatever the hell you want to do, upgrade storage, etc. over time, so you can do that. But it still typically, when somebody's first entering the market, it still typically means you need to know what you're doing. You need to know when to buy, what to buy, to give yourself the platform to start. And not everyone has the time, energy, or wants to commit themselves to that. I don't think that that's representative of most people, but they still are. They're definitely out there, and I advocate for people to do that 100%. I think that with the amount of knowledge and stuff that's out on YouTube. Just ignore The Verge. We all know that catastrophic PC building fiasco from a few years back now. But like otherwise, yeah, I mean, there's so much information, and building a PC is not easy, but it's not hard. There are some scary points. Honestly, the only scary thing about building a PC is two pieces for me. It's making sure that all of your motherboard standoffs are in the case. Those are, little metal threaded brackets that the motherboard sits on when you put it in the PC case that keep it separate, isolated from the case, so that you don't short the motherboard and all the parts on it with electricity. And then putting the CPU into the socket Even though there's a, you know, gold triangle and whatnot, some motherboards make it impossible to fucking see it, and it can just be, it's always a harrowing experience getting that in there, because you put the lever arm down and there's pressure involved, and you're like, ah! Once you're past that, everything else is like, it goes into a slot. And maybe there's like a screw, and it's not so scary. But yeah, there can be some harrowing moments with that stuff. But it's definitely an experience that I recommend anyone that has the ability and time to do, because at the end you also feel real good when you build a PC and it comes on. You feel like fucking Frankenstein. You're like, it lives, and then it immediately blue screens because you fucked up the RAM install or something. That's okay. You'll figure it out. But I definitely recommend probably giving it a go. Mealex says next time come visit and build my PC. It's true. We could just take the extra money and make it a vacation, and then build the PC while I'm there. Yeah, it's not, and that's not to say that Starforge is ripping people off. It's not. That's just the nature of their business. It's the markups are there for a reason, and some are certainly better than others. Canadian FPS has just built my new PC, an all-new AM5 7900 X3D, and just waiting for the 50 series cards to come around and not sell out in 30 seconds. Yeah, 7800 X3D is or 7900 X3D, sorry. It's a hell of a chip. Very impressive piece of equipment. I'm on a 5800 X3D myself on AM4. AMD was very good to people on AM4. I hope they're just as good to people on AM5 with the longevity and extensibility of the platform. Yeah, I mean, y'all know my thoughts on the 50 series NVIDIA cards. I think they're dog shit. I think they're overpriced. They're rebadged 40 series cards. You're scaling performance for power draw and dollar cost. And they're really, you know, Jensen is really pushing the envelope of bordering on false advertising with how he's framing the 4X, you know, multi-sample, multi or MFG, multi-frame generation stuff is complete and utter nonsense. Honestly, I think it's bullshit. It's complete bullshit. The 5070 is not going to be worth owning. I can't even believe that they're selling a 5080 with 16 gigs of RAM in 2025. That's completely and utterly insane. I promise you at some point they workshopped the idea of a 24 gig 5080 and then said, and they'll probably have one that comes out later that's 24 gigs. You can mark this if you want. I'm almost positive that's what they're going to do. The problem right now is that ultimately they don't have enough competition from AMD to give a fuck, and they're going to screw you as a consumer as hard as humanly possible. Because again, like Jeff said, people will buy anything, and they don't know. They have no idea. Like anything I just said, they don't even know. I'm speaking Latin. They don't know what any of that means. They see new card, big dick, buy money. And it sucks because it enables continued anti-consumer practices by NVIDIA. For example, this is another thing that you might not know, and again, it doesn't matter to the average consumer because they wouldn't know, but because they don't know, it's an agency problem, and they're left in the dark and they're getting fucked. NVIDIA is refusing to participate in the open source programs that allow graphics cards to be benchmarked equally and accurately, and creating their own so that when they put their own benchmarks out, it's the equivalent to them saying, we've investigated internally ourselves and found no wrongdoing. And that ain't right. You pair that with Jensen getting up on stage and saying something as asinine as the 5070 is going to, give you the performance of a 4090, and I mean, it's just you can see where they're going with it. That being said, it is the name of the game. If people weren't buying it, they wouldn't be doing it, but people will keep buying them anyway. I sincerely hope that AMD takes this opportunity that NVIDIA is providing them and change their minds on doing a top-end card. You know, they said that they were not going to do like another thing like a 7900 XTX. You know, they're gonna have their 9070, which is the equivalent of the 7900 XT, more or less, in terms of like the positioning in their stack, their product stack. And I hope that they change their mind and put out a 9090 or a 9070 XTX or some whatever the fuck. I think that would be really, really popular right now, especially because their new version of FSR is very, very, very good, and for the average person, probably indistinguishable from DLSS 4. So they should probably take advantage of that for sure. I'll move on to another topic, so I'm not just sitting here and ranting for too much longer while Mr. Black is gone. Don't want to get you guys too bored with all this tech talk. The Sims 1 and 2 get a re-release this week with an advertisement campaign that arguably had more time, energy, and love put into it than any of the Sims 4 content. If you've not seen the ad and you want to be reminded what advertisements were like a very long time ago, you should go check it out. It's actually a pretty good advertisement, I'm not going to lie. A lot of Easter eggs in that bitch. Unfortunately, as of at least 5 days ago, I don't know if it's been changed since. The Sims 1 and 2, I think at least the Sims 2 portion of it was quite broken, and a lot of people were talking about how it was basically non-functional. So, not the greatest start to it. A lot of excitement in the Sims community for it, but not the greatest start for this kind of much look forward to re-release. But that seems to be par for the course these days anyway. Battlefield, that's a video game that people used to play, right? It's not just that one, like, 75-year-old old army veteran that now puts up clips of him sniping people on YouTube. There were more people one time that used to play Battlefield. Battlefield's next game has gotten some pre-alpha footage released. You can go and check that out on, I'm sure, many platforms. It's... Like anything, when somebody says pre-alpha and it looks like a full release game, maybe take it with a grain of salt. Nevertheless, I mean, it looks good. I expect any Battlefield game to look good at this point. That's not shocking to me, but it does look, it does look visually impressive. It has its typical destructible environments as well. They showcase that in the brief clips they have there. That's another thing everyone's just going to assume is there by default in a Battlefield game. At the moment that Battlefield doesn't have destructible environments, you just don't even make the game. It's not even worth the time. They're open now, I believe, for people to sign up to become testers for this thing. So if you're into that kind of stuff, you can go and check that out as well. I really want Battlefield to do well again. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I would love it if Battlefield could possibly go toe-to-toe with Call of Duty and other titles at the top of the food chain again. If I think about it, I think that earlier on, I had more fun with Battlefield than I had with Call of Duty. And I played a lot of Call of Duty. I was, for Jeff and I, our generation, we were the Modern Warfare 2 group, and obviously games before, but like in terms of the modernized Call of Duty, we played a lot of that stuff. But like Battlefield, I played and enjoyed my time with Battlefield more. Bad Company 2 was definitely on the short list for one of my favorite multiplayer games of all time. And it would be nice for Battlefield to kind of have a return to form. They seem to be constantly mired in something or another with their last, 3 releases now. They just can't seem to get it together enough to put out a real certified banger. But it would be great to have another choice in the kind of high-end AAA FPS market again in a Battlefield title. But we'll have to wait and see what comes out of this. It looks like, visually, it looks like it's probably set in the early 2000s or something along those lines. So we're not going back to some, 1980s synthwave vibe like lots of people have been, or we're not going to the future, where we're more or less, going to be in more recent history. Now, that being said, I have to remind myself that the early 2000s was 20 years ago. And so, fuck me. As far as the kids are concerned now, that was the equivalent of what? The 70s. For me? Fuck. Son of a bitch! Nevertheless, that's what it looks like as far as the timing is concerned. That's the kind of era that it looks like, at least from the brief clips that I saw in that first little teaser. Did you guys hear? Now, obviously you heard about the California wildfires. Everyone heard about the California wildfires. But did you guys hear about the idiot, the absolute imbecile that flew his drone around a restricted airspace and ended up hitting a Canadian water bomber that was in the area helping fight the fires, coming from up north, coming down to help out, and grounding that plane because it hit its left wing and damaged the fuck out of it, grounding it for a week, taking it out of the fight. If you haven't heard about it, well, you have now. And everyone was wondering, who was dumb enough to do this shit? Why would you ever? I wasn't like that surprised. A lot of drones are seem to be a bit problematic in general because unless you're somebody that takes it very seriously and you're like a licensed drone pilot, you take it almost as seriously as a pilot would of an actual plane, where you're being very aware of where you're flying your drone and when and what you're doing with it. But lots of people just treat drones as like a toy that you buy, at fucking Walmart and then just go do your shit. And so I wasn't like super surprised this happened, but it was disappointing because it was restricted airspace. You had to imagine that if you were flying a drone at any reasonable height to do surveying, you ran the risk of hitting something that was trying to help fight the fire and was more important than your ability to record your footage from your drone. As it turns out, the person who owned that drone was none other than the co-founder of Treyarch Games, Peter Aikman. Go fucking figure. What are the odds? I don't know, but here we are. The co-founder of Treyarch was the one who was flying his drone, hit the plane, took it out of commission, and now, now that they've traced the drone back to him, he's facing up to a year in prison, alongside of paying $65,000 to repair the plane. That's the damage that they did to the plane with that drone. And he's hoping, obviously, he's hoping to avoid the jail time by doing 150 hours of community service and pay the fine instead of doing any jail time. Now, that being said, who is to say, but this man is wealthy, and I somehow doubt he's doing jail time. Nevertheless, I feel like drone pilots are getting dangerously close to gender reveal parties for most obnoxious use of anything ever. We need to calm down. We need to get that stuff under control. It's getting a little outrageous. Somebody was in that plane, in that water bomber, trying to save lives and more, and could have lost their own life because somebody needed to fly a fucking drone. That shit's crazy. That's outrageous, which has been a word that I can't stop saying in the last few days. I'm trying so hard not to overuse it, but I'm definitely failing. And lastly, in our quick news, it has to be happening now. It has to be. Bloodborne. It has to be coming. It has to be 60 FPS has to be happening now. You know why? Because Sony is out there weaponizing the DMCA and taking down Bloodborne and Bloodborne-related activities. So Bloodborne, famously, we've joked about it here on the podcast a million times before, but Bloodborne, unfortunately, has yet to even have a 60 FPS patch for the PlayStation 5. Community members have long since accomplished this goal, like ages ago. And a lot of people have been using that patch to enjoy Bloodborne at 60 FPS. Unfortunately, Sony has issued DMCA takedowns for that 60 FPS Bloodborne patch, as well as the PlayStation Bloodborne demake, which was, I think, just mostly in video form at this time. I don't know. I can't remember if the demake was ever like intended to be released for public, for public use. I mean, probably was, but I, to my knowledge, I thought it was just in video form. Either way, they also in the same week sent out DMCA's to the PSX demake of Bloodborne. If it's not happening now, I don't even know what to say anymore. If we can't get Bloodborne 60 FPS and they're going to go out here and take down the only other viable forms of enjoying this game outside of its 30 FPS PlayStation 4 like landlocked version, then I just fucking give up. They just don't like money. They have to be doing it. Like we've said before, like there doesn't make any sense that they wouldn't be actively developing this to some degree to make it happen. It would be undoubtedly a financial success and huge win to put Bloodborne, even if you just put Bloodborne 60 FPS PC, done. You're selling 5, 6, 7 million copies right off the rip. How many copies did Elden Ring sell? Like fucking 30 million? 28.6 million as of September of 2024. You got to imagine Bloodborne can do 1/5 of that shit. Right? You have to. People have been dying to get their hands on a modernized version of Bloodborne because for a lot of people, Bloodborne is still it. Like Elden Ring is kind of so expanded beyond the Dark Souls base formula in scope and whatnot that it almost feels like its own entity. Of the Dark Souls games, so Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, and then Bloodborne, a lot of people still kind of covet Bloodborne as the best of all of those. And yet it's the one that's getting the least amount of love. You know, we've had touch-ups of nearly everything else Dark Souls related, including Demon Souls, the original, like the original, the starter pack of this whole thing from the PlayStation 3. Like, we have that done in full. And I don't even think people are necessarily wanting them to spend all of that time and money on that. They don't, and not that the game, but by they don't want them to redo Bloodborne, ground up, new engine, the whole 9 yards. They just want a legal, viable way of playing the original Bloodborne in 60 frames per second. That's all people are looking for. You know what this is kind of reminiscent of? I know many of you are old enough to remember this, and you've definitely heard me, joke about this in the past because of my disdain for the re-release or how they're doing the Final Fantasy VII remake. But it reminds me of
Adam, can you check your Discord?
Yes. Oh, geez. Okay. No problem.
Yeah.
I got you. Keep me posted, brother.
Yep.
All right, peace.
You have my overlay thing that you can put up there instead of my webcam?
I do. You are now a cartoon as of this moment.
All right. Okay.
All right, brother. We'll be talking. Oh God, now I'm looking at myself in Discord. There we go. So Mr. Black has to dip. Everything is fine, but he has to dip, and you guys will get developments on that when we can. So it's just me. It's me and you guys in your car going to work. It's just me and you. There's no escaping it now. You're stuck with me for the rest of this podcast. Yeah, but it reminds me of PlayStation. Well, not PlayStation, but Sony and Square Enix doing what they did with Final Fantasy VII. Back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. It was PlayStation 3 era. So, you know, let's say it was 2005. Well, the lead up to it was before. So let's say it started in about 2000, maybe 4 or 5, and then it went through 2004, 5, 6, 7, all the way up until like really like 2010, 11. The community was crying out for a remake or some sort of remastering of Final Fantasy VII. Well, I shouldn't say remaster. They were looking for a remake. And when you went and read all the forums and stuff, because this is a lot of this was pre-social media, so you have to bear with me on that one if you're not old enough yet, but pre-social media. So pretty much everyone just wanted a kind of like just a general remake. They just wanted they wanted to keep pretty much everything about the game the same, but they wanted the game to not be, you know, triangles fighting each other to stay together to form what's supposed to be Cloud's elbow. That's kind of what people were looking for. They weren't looking for some sort of like bombastic, ground up, fucking crazy reconstruction effort that dramatically changed and altered everything from the story to the characters involved and how the plot played out. And people were just dying to have, to have their beloved characters and story and whatnot and gameplay in modernized graphical form. That's what basically everyone was done. And this was the tone of the community for like half a decade or more. And a lot of it was spurred on, of course, by eventually, you know, at the time that Advent Children was 2005. So, like, you can understand why that was happening around that time, too. Advent Children really took the Final Fantasy VII characters and modernized them, and everyone was like, oh my god, I need that in game form. Whatever that is, I need it. That's what people were saying. And they did for years. And then, but all that time, it kind of like it got louder and louder and louder. And again, this is like pre-social media, right? So this wasn't like a bunch of screaming neckbeards got on fucking Twitter and then like threatened to kill a developer if they didn't do something until the developer put out a release statement that was probably on like some sort of like JPEG background with text on it. It was a groundswell movement thing until it got so big that it reached all the way over into Japan, glorious Nippon, and then Square Enix came out and were like, guys, we heard, all right? We know. You all want Final Fantasy VII in the modern era, and we'd love to do it for you. Unfortunately, as much as we would like to, it would be too expensive in both time and money to be able to do so. And we're going to have to simply leave Cloud and Tifa and Barrett and Red and Aerith or Aeris, if whoever the fuck you... We gotta leave them behind. We must march forward with time. And they stuck to their guns on that for years. Years and years. Multiple interviews, multiple magazines, Japanese and otherwise, multiple places. That was the drumbeat that they followed until finally they fucking caved and decided, well, they didn't even really cave, but they were like, all right, now's the time to do it. And it's funny because when they did it, they were arguably in a weaker position than they were back when everyone was talking about it. Because when they chose to announce it, people had stopped giving a fuck. Like they stopped caring. Like nobody was talking about it anymore. And then they announced it. And of course, there was lots of people excited, obviously. And then they called it Final Fantasy VII Remake. And everyone was like, fuck yeah. Fuck yes. Yes. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Not remaster, remake. Love it. I'm on. And when they announced it, it was just during kind of like the proliferation of remake culture in gaming, taking an old game and remaking it, but keeping almost everything the same and just bringing up the visuals, bringing up the audio. That's what a remake was. And so they kind of campaigned on it, and they were being very kind of like wishy-washy on how much detail and what, like, and eventually over time you could watch as the narrative kind of changed as to how they were marketing the game, until finally they were like, oh, by the way, this isn't the Final Fantasy VII that you know. This is a fucking dramatic departure in just about every imaginable way you can think of. And so this moment for Bloodborne reminds me of that era leading up to that point. I'm not saying that they're going to reinvent the wheel with Bloodborne, but the lead up reminds me of it, where people had been calling for it, where all they want is this 60 FPS update that the community has already figured the fuck out and have had out for ages, and maybe just upscale it to 4K, not having to, maybe you have to redo a couple of textures so that they scale less ugly, but that's all people are looking for. Nothing crazy. Include whatever kind of side content that they might have had available to. Cool, that's it. And it feels like we're going to get to a point where they were like, nah, I don't want to, no. And with the mindset of like, too expensive, won't make enough money, too expensive, won't make, and then they're going to spend like a huge amount of money. This is what it feels like is about to happen, very similar to Final Fantasy, where they're going to spend a ton of money to redo Bloodborne, and perhaps in some instances do test the waters of reinventing the wheel, maybe trying to fold in some more Elden Ring type shit or whatever the fuck, and then risk changing or doing too much to the point where you turn people off and you don't sell as much, or you sell a lot, but you spent so much money that you didn't make nearly as much money as you could have if you had just put out the 60 FPS patch officially and upscaled that bitch and put it on the PlayStation 5 and PC. Because that's people are asking, why overshoot so far? It just seems crazy to me. But that does seem kind of what we're kind of the direction that we are heading in with Bloodborne. As long as it happens, I'm sure people probably won't care too much though. Because they just want Bloodborne in anything other than 30 FPS so bad, they're like, fuck it, just give it to me. Please, whatever you got. Just give it to me. I've been waiting for it for an eternity, just give me the damn thing. But I will be very perplexed if after these DMCA takedowns that we don't hear about the actual. I see M is using the cement mixer in the middle of the podcast, and I call it the cement mixer. It's the Ninja blender. She's making a smoothie, very, very obviously. But yeah, I don't think people are going to care too much as long as they just get the damn game. But I do hope that they do it and not leave it behind and just be doing these takedowns for the sake of doing takedowns, because then it just feels like a Nintendo move, right? One sec. Okay. But either way, that's all I got for your video game news, which means it's time for a little bit of a sellout. Patreon.com/LagTV is the place to go if you want to financially support this podcast, and of course, as another outlet to support the StarCraft content. If you've been enjoying that, we had some banger content for StarCraft this week. We had an arguably all-time classic this past week that if you haven't already seen, you'll know it when you see it. You're going to want to go and check it out. It's a certified banger. But yeah, if you want to support the podcast financially, or if you want to support StarCraft financially as just another method, patreon.com/LagTV. And then of course, you live in the future. The future is now. Maybe you don't want to live in the future. Maybe you're like me and you're spiritually still in 2014. Unfortunately, you're still in 2025, like the rest of us. You can't escape it. Not until we're in 2026 anyway. And with that comes all sorts of weird and wonderful things that you have to manage in your life and avoid and keep safe and protected. And a great way to do that is when you're out and about and you're off your home Wi-Fi, the protection of your own home. You gotta stay safe. You gotta stay anonymous. And a great way to do so is make sure that you're using NordVPN. And if you go to the link in the description below, NordVPN, I believe it's NordVPN/ or with the promo code OTT. I think the link might also be /OTT. I can't remember off the top of my head. You'd think I would after hearing Jeff say it for years now. You can get a great discount. Less than a cup of coffee a month, really. And honestly, the more that time goes on, the more real that becomes. Because coffee it's freaking expensive right now. But you know what isn't? NordVPN. I think you can get even more. You get so many simultaneous let me put it this way. More simultaneous connections than a girl experimenting with her sexuality in university. That's a lot of connections. It's a lot. More than you'll ever need, especially if you just put it on your home Wi-Fi router right off the rip. Every connection in the house covered right off the rip. But if you need to, you can do it individually. And I promise you, you have enough connections available. You're not going to, unless you're like a gold farmer, which you shouldn't be because it's illegal in many places. But if you're a video game gold farmer, you've got 48,000 phones running in the household. Okay, maybe you got a problem. For everyone else, there's NordVPN, and you should check it out. They've been very good to us here on the podcast for years. You guys have been very good to also be using our link and sticking with them as well. And that's what allows them to continue to come back and sponsor this podcast for as long as they have and continue to. And we appreciate your help, and we appreciate theirs as well, keeping the wheels on this bus turning. And now it's time for movies and TV. I know it's not as impressive, but I have to keep up with tradition. There's, ironically, for the first week in ages, there are movie and movie-related things to talk about on this podcast, and Mr. Black had to dip, unfortunately, for good reason. Trust. He wouldn't dip otherwise if it wasn't important. Fantastic Four. First Steps got a trailer. Now, if there was ever a superhero property that has been beaten into the ground mercilessly by bad writing, and really just poor everything for many times now, it's the Fantastic Four. Is this attempt 4? Like, is this movie number 4, like, or attempt of rebooting, or is this 3? Because I was going to say third time's a charm, but if it's 4, there's some irony here that we could definitely use if this is number 4. Either way, is it 3? Oh, shit. All right, well, maybe there's still hope for the next one. I mean, listen, everyone knows that Fantastic Four has not just fallen on hard times, it has lived in hard times for a while. I think there is 4. There was one in the 70s. Oh, okay, well, I'm talking more about like the modern ones, but if we're counting like 1992, okay. I mean, we could for the joke. This is if the 4th one is fantastic. I mean, shit, dude. The marketing writes itself at that point. Let's be honest. It has been unfortunately mishandled for a long time. You know, Jessica Alba can only carry a movie so far. Let's be very real. I watched this trailer earlier today. I saw some of the teasers before, and I already liked it based on the teasers, and I'll tell you why. I'm not really a comic book guy at all. Shocking, I know. I've displayed such great comic book knowledge prowess for years, and you're thinking, how could you possibly without any knowledge? I know. But it's true, not a comic book guy. That being said, I have very specific memories of when I was younger much younger, like childhood, like maybe 5, 6 years old. And at my grandmother's place, this was way outside the city. This is like farm country, where Dad grew up. They had some old, they weren't comics, but they were old, Fantastic Four books. And it was in the, it was very reminiscent of probably when these were produced, honestly, like the 60s maybe, or 70s at best. I want to say maybe 60s. Either way, the visual styling of it was a mixture of like the 60s, but like the Jetsons ass look, where it was like what the future looked like to people in the 60s. Right? The cars, the architecture, the whole 9 yards, the color palette. And I loved that book when I was a kid. You know, those couple of books. And so when I saw the teasers and I saw that they were going for that, I was like, damn, that's fucking dope. I was kind of in just on the aesthetic, but generally speaking, from that trailer, as stark of a trailer as it might have been as far as like content is concerned, I mean, they dropped, what's his face, Galactus, I think is his name. Which I'll be honest, it kind of stood out like a sore thumb because it looked like, I'll just use this bottle as an example on the camera. Like it's this picture of like what is like would be New York or whatever the fuck it is, and then you just see like what looks like a fucking prop being like coming into frame behind in front of the camera. It looks so fucking, it looks corny as shit, but at the same time, I mean, shit, it's Galactus. I think this is probably the first modernized version of Galactus or whatever his name is that we're going to be getting. I don't know, I love the aesthetic. I think that the tone looks like it's going in the right direction. I dig it. I'm looking forward to it. I hope that it is finally the one that allows the Fantastic Four to get out of this cursed hellhole that they've been trapped in for an eternity, and really give us a give us a good new platform to leap off of for this next round of superhero films. Because I mean, shit, dude. I mean, I think everyone had a little bit of fatigue anyway when we got to Endgame. But I mean, let's not pretend like the attempts that have come after have been by and large pretty fucking whatever. It would be nice if we were able to revive superhero movies in the sense that everyone could be excited again. But there you go. So that was Fantastic Four. Then we had this is one that they need to leave this bitch behind. We are hitting superhero movie fatigue levels for me with this shit. Jurassic World Rebirth. I am Jurassic Park movied out of my mind. I kind of called it quits around the time that I started, seeing them make a character out of one of the raptors. What was it? I think it was a female raptor, like Blue or whatever. And Chris Pratt on a fucking dirt bike leading a pack of I checked out around that time. That shit got weird. And it stopped feeling like Jurassic Park and just felt like reanimating the body of Jurassic Park to make money. This does not feel any different than that. In fact, this feels like perhaps the most egregious example of that. I'm sure it's still going to make lots of money because, let's be honest, it's Jurassic Park and it's got a couple of people in it that people know. It's going to make some money. But this is like the premise of this is Jurassic Park has been cordoned off and protected land for some indeterminate period of time. And after all this time has gone on, the dinosaurs are still living around and on the island, but it's been government, protected and sealed off for a long time. And there's this company that has this, I guess it's a medical pharmaceutical company that has developed or wants to develop this incredible drug that will cure everything, including reversing the effects of people taking so much Ozempic that they look like a fucking living zombie. But there's one catch. They need a whole bunch of DNA from some very specific dinosaurs on the island of Jurassic Park. What a bitch. And there's only so much that they can do to get it. They have to get a ragtag group together. You know, you got to have your lockpick Smith. You've got to have your dude that can put on 1,000 accents. You got to have your boss ass woman fucking lady fucking keeping the whole thing together. The sex appeal with a gun. And so, anyway, Scarlett Johansson is disappointingly not playing as one of the dinosaurs. She's actually playing a human female, which is rare for her these days. And she's leading up this group who is to, you know, put the band together. You know, she's got all these old contacts, the best of the best. You know, they're a little bit seedy, but they get the job done. And then they have to go to the island to make this happen. Now, this isn't just regular old Jurassic Park island. This is some portion of the island that nobody knew existed. It was blacklisted even to all the previous movies that happened before. Nobody had ever seen it, flew over it with one of the 97 helicopters or around it with a boat. Nobody knew it was there. This shit's like the island that the Squid Games happens on. Impossible to find. This is where all of the too hot for TV dinosaurs were put in all the previous movies, apparently. Too dangerous for the public were these dinosaurs. Too rowdy, unwieldy, unpredictable. And they put them all in this one spot like a gladiatorial pit and left them alone to deal with themselves. This is where the dinosaurs are that they need to sample the DNA from. And so it's not just a regular old-fashioned trip. No, it's the far more dangerous, the most dangerous, jumping the shark island adventure that they must endure. And of course, despite the fact that in the trailer they say this is like the most dangerous island ever, the government doesn't even protect it anymore because nobody's dumb enough to go. And everyone's like, yeah, fucking super dangerous. Not even the government gives a fuck anymore. People will go die on the island. What do we need to do? Bring a child. They brought another fucking kid. They ain't even going under the pretense of this being an amusement park. They are specifically going illegally to obtain dinosaur DNA for, you know, Flizer. Like, and they're still bringing a kid to the most dangerous part of the island that nobody even knew existed. Because it wouldn't be Jurassic Park without there being a little bit of danger for the youths. Clearly. The children in the audience that shouldn't be there need to be able to insert themselves into the situation in which a giant dinosaur disembowels another human. Clearly, that is what needs to happen. And so they're doing it. It looks like ass. I'm not gonna lie. And not even a great ass, as great as Scarlett Johansson's ass is. The movie itself, not so much. It looks dry, stale, beaten up. It looks like me in movie form. I'm definitely not going to be going to see it unless M desperately wants to and drags me to it. So of these two, I will be avoiding this one like the plague, no doubt, in my mind. And with that, oh shit, no, I got one more thing. Fuck. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. If, like me, you're approaching what the youths would call geriatric. Old heads. Basically dead at 36. You grew up watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And you probably had a sexual awakening at least once watching this show. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Fire television show. Still cult following to this day. Apparently, it is in the works to create a sequel to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And Sarah Michelle Gellar is part of the group putting this together. Somebody approached her a few years ago, and they were talking about it, and she was like, "Oh, fine, I'll talk about it at least." So they went out for coffee and had a little chit-chat, and like, that's what girls sound like at coffee, I think. And she came out and she was like, wow, maybe we could, like if we do it right, maybe we could do a sequel to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Maybe it's possible. And so they kept talking over the course of years, and the group, you know, the sisterhood of the traveling vampire slayer got bigger and bigger, and they seem to now be in earnest attempting to put together a possible sequel to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She has been adamant that she only wants to do it. This is Sarah Michelle Gellar. She only wants to do it if she thinks that they can do it properly. Because let's be honest, for Sarah Michelle Gellar, that is her like identity as an actress. It was Buffy. It was like probably her most cherished moments of her life were on that show. Ran for a long time. And she probably doesn't want to, you know, ruin that with, you know, some sort of sequel that would be, I don't know, destined to show up on what's fuck, I ruined my own joke, but you guys can help me. What's that fucking channel that they do a whole bunch of like the world's like most low budget superhero fucking shows. It's also the one that the Whose Line Is It Anyway reboot premiered on. Shit. The CW, thank you. I don't think she wants a CW show. And who can blame her? Nobody wants a CW show. Nobody even really wants the CW. I'm not even convinced CW wants the CW at this point. But yeah, she has said that she only really wants to completely go through with it if she thinks that it can be done properly. And so hopefully that is possible. I'd fucks with a sequel to Buffy. Dude, Buffy was great. I used to watch the shit out of that show growing up. It was a good, you know, a good fun show. I don't think it's probably aged well. It's probably one of those shows that was based on how it was shot, maybe not and paced, maybe not as watchable today. A lot of older shows fall victim to this because everyone has kind of gotten used to binging. And all these shows from this era were, of course, not meant to be binged. They were released over a period of time where lots of time passed between episodes, and or enough time passed between episodes that it wasn't just you sat down and watched, you know, like 40 fucking episodes like a degenerate. You know, this was a different time. So I don't know. Maybe it hasn't aged well. Nevertheless, I would definitely mess with some more Buffy the Vampire Slayer personally. And that now is it for movies and TV, which means it's time for tech support. Patreon.com/LikeTV, like I just mentioned not too long ago, is the place to go if you want to financially support the podcast or StarCraft or whatever. For $5 more a month, you too can have the illustrious, incredible honor of asking Jeff and I, but today, just me, questions in which we give you answers. I put up a host up on the Like TV Patreon page before the podcast each week called Tech Support with the number of the week of the podcast. You ask us questions in that comment section. We give you the answers. In the time that we have, let's see what we've got this week. And it's just me. I got nobody to bounce this off of right now. Oh, wait, we get a little message from Mr. Black. Let's see what the questions are. Where's my Patreon app? There we are. My favorite app in the world. Love you, Patreon app. Not. Okay. So, let me see here. What do we got for this week? What the fuck? All right. For my first question, the first question here is from Seth, who said, yo, low-key trying to get this guy's out here on Gen Z hype. Yo, low-key trying to get the 411 on this new SC2 patch for real. Like, what's the most giga cringe part of it? They nerfing the sauce or buffing some busted unit no one asked for? Spill the tea, my guy, because I ain't trying to get ratioed by some crack Zerg main who just 12 pulls me into oblivion. W or L patch, no cap. No facts, all printer. Not a fucking clue. I don't know if you're talking about the current patch or a new patch that Jeff and I have not talked about personally and I haven't heard any news about, so if there's a new one, I don't know. And would not be able to give you any thoughts on it, even, I haven't even seen anyone talk about it, which means it couldn't have been as bad as the last one, if it is a new one. No, there ain't nothing. Nothing I can find. As far as the current patch is concerned, I mean, we've already talked about in depth what our thoughts are on the patch. It's, you know, there are at least as many L's as there are W's in that last patch. And I dare say there are more L's than W's. That would be the way to characterize it. Borkchop asks, are you guys dog or cat people? Jeff, despite the fact that Jeff has owned 2 cats and a dog, he is definitely a dog person. I can answer that for him. As much as he loved Max the cat, and as much as he still, loves Milo, he is a dog person, I think, at heart. More so than a cat person, and Thor's his baby. Me, I'm either really. However, I'm not somebody that is kind of delusional when it comes to dog ownership. A lot of people get dogs that do not fit their lifestyle, and it just becomes a nightmare for everyone involved, the dog included. And I know that, at least for the foreseeable future, it is unlikely that unless it was a very small dog, which I'm not a big fan of very small dogs, because they're typically bred poorly and have personality problems that are really hard to work out. We don't have the space for one, really. We don't have the yardage to really use adequately, for what I would like for a, anything bigger than, oh my god, a Sheltie, in terms of size. And from like a general activity level, Em and I both work, and we work long hours, and it is unlikely that, consistently we'd be getting out and being able to properly exercise a dog if we had one. I do love cats as well. I don't love litter boxes, and no matter how modernized they get and how well you can manage them, it still sucks. And you can train a cat, but a lot of what a cat is a very independent animal, and oftentimes you're almost better waiting for a cat to pick you than going and trying to pick a cat. But Em and I currently, Em's always fielded the idea of a dog or a cat. We're looking to have, start a family here this year, and we don't need to throw another wrench in life just yet. But I'm sure in the future we will likely do one or the other. I would say there's a bigger chance of it being a cat just based on our current lifestyle, and in the future, if that changes, we have more space and whatnot, then maybe a dog would be ideal. Josh Kim asking, do you think Yamcha or Tien could take over the world, like just the world we're in right now? Of course. Like if you strip away like the outliers of Saiyans coming from another planet. In the grand scheme of things, I mean, Yamcha at least. Yamcha was fucking people up on Earth, bro. He had it locked up. Tien, yeah, third eye, might be Illuminati, you never know. But yeah, no, I clearly, come on. Wolfang Fist? Psh, no brainer. Nerd Dude, let's see here. It says, after Jeff's coffee crisp story, my wife and I had to try it. And we found it delightful. Oh, they tried coffee crisp for the first time. We also tried all-dressed chips a while back as a result of the podcast. What other Canadian food recommendations do you have for non-Canadian listeners? Oh, man. Shit. Yeah, you guys actually just, in some of the states, got Lay's doing all-dressed chips. And it's not that that's not good, because all-dressed chips are fire, but the best brand of all-dressed chips are Ruffles all-dressed. And so that, in my mind, that's the definitive all-dressed. It's the only all-dressed I'll eat. I don't buy any others. So I don't even know what the Lay's one tastes like. I don't know if I care. But nevertheless, yeah, so Coffee Crisp. Yeah, Coffee Crisp is a solid candy bar, I'm not gonna lie. And then all-dressed chips are fire. But what other Canadian-specific snacks? It can be hard sometimes to even remember or know what is Canadian specific and not, because we have so much American stuff here that it all kind of gets lost in the mix. Ketchup chips are obviously the easy one to pick out, that are similar to all dressed Canadian specific thing. If you want more chips, ketchup chips. Lay's, coincidentally, best ketchup chip. The only problem with ketchup chips is that depending on how much seasoning is on the chips, you can either have like a really kind of bland experience, literally and figuratively, or not. But a good seasoned bag of Lay's ketchup chips are amazing. Highly recommend. If you want other chips that are Canadian specific, I know Hickory Sticks are also Canadian specific. That's probably more of a acquired taste. But I'm sure that there are more than a few Americans that would enjoy Hickory Sticks. Hickory Sticks are something that you can't really eat a lot of in a single sitting. The flavor really like takes over your mouth and stays there for a while. So you'll get like flavor fatigue pretty quick. Beyond that kind of stuff, I'm trying to think of what else. I don't know. Do the States have Three Musketeers? The chocolate bar? Or Wonder Bar? Like, do they have Wonder Bar and, okay, so you guys have Three Musketeers, okay. Three Musketeers, fire. You have Wonder Bar as well. What else? Yeah, we lost, Cherry Blossoms here. That's no longer a thing. Those were kind of fucking whatever anyway. Let me just look. Not sure on Wonder Bar? Okay, let me see. Maybe you don't have it. Okay, it is. Wonder Bar, spelled W-U-N-D-E-R-B-A-R, is a Canadian chocolate bar made by Cadbury. Wunderbar is my in my pantheon, my top 3, I don't eat chocolate bars or anything like ever, really. Like Halloween, you know, I'll eat the leftover stuff. My pantheon, my holy trinity, or my Mount Rushmore, I'll give you 4. My Mount Rushmore, in no particular order. Wunderbar, Three Musketeers, Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, Mars Bar. It's the Mount Rushmore. Those are definitely my tops. Okay. But you can still buy them apparently, so Wonderbar at Amazon and other places. There might be some spots that that have it. Yeah, I don't know. It is a Canadian classic. It's a specifically Canadian chocolate bar. So yeah, I'll go with that. I'll say Wunderbar, Wunderbar. Wunderbar. I remember the old commercials from back in the 90s. Wunderbar. It's good stuff. And then yeah, Miss Vicky's. Anything Miss Vicky's. Miss Vicky's salt and vinegar. Oh man. Fuck me. Fuck me with the bag of Miss Vicky's salt and vinegar, actually. Let's see. What else we got here? Jubinator, I'm wanting to start content creation involving money and finance. What is your advice on making content that's valuable and helpful for other people? Oh man. Am I the right person to ask? Is any of this valuable? I mean, the thing to keep in mind in the current content creation space, especially when it comes to educational stuff, is you want to be able to ensure that whatever you do, you can transform it. You have a long form, but it's transformable into a short. 60 seconds or less. I know that they've expanded shorts, but just trust me, 60 seconds or less. So the most successful for content like that, or just content in general, probably something that, you know, when it comes to informative content, regardless of if it's supposed to be educational or otherwise, you know, you want to explain a problem that you're going to discuss in the video, why it's important, and then describe how, to some degree, that you're going to you know, to tackle the topic up front. Now, that doesn't have to be, you don't necessarily want to make it sound like like an outline for an essay. But that's just like the general format that you would perhaps want to follow to some degree, is that. Beyond that, man, whenever you can, you gotta find a way, like anything. You know, if people find it fun, they're gonna be engaged, and they're gonna learn more when they find it engaging and fun. So you gotta want to just try to find ways of making whatever you're talking about, which if you're talking about, you know, money and finance, I mean, fuck. Good luck. It's possible, but it's gonna be challenging. You know, that's kind of what you need to be able to, the challenge that you have to tackle. Excuse me. Let me see here. Sour Apple, you guys must have come across an endless number of internet trolls throughout your career. Is there any particular troll you can remember that you find interesting, hateful, or funny? Good question. Yes. Do I remember their names at this point? No. They're not important enough to remember their names, to be honest with you. But I can just remember, like, specific times that were, you know, or that there were long-standing. I know, in early Lag TV days, there were definitely, a couple of trolls that that had multiple accounts in the comments for sure that were, you know, just bothersome. But there were so many comments back then that it didn't really matter, and the community kind of like handled it themselves. We didn't even have to get involved. From a streaming perspective, I know Jeff has had innumerable trolls, you know, whether it's stream snipers in StarCraft or what have you, lots and lots and lots of trolls. I've had trolls in, you know, but not too many in streaming. Thankfully, I've had only a handful. There's like one or two specifically that would have stood out as being particularly disruptive. But generally speaking, nothing like super crazy. Just annoying for a time, and then everyone just forgets them because like there's nothing else to remember them by except for the fact that they were mildly annoying for a time. What I have learned over the years though is that there is definitely a the term troll gets thrown around a lot, and it doesn't really mean much anymore. There are a ton of people who are on the internet who are labeled as a troll, but they're not actually trolling. You know, trolling indicates that they're intentionally trying to manipulate a situation or a person to, you know, for their own entertainment purposes, or to annoy or egg on or get a reaction from somebody. The reality is that there are more people who are labeled a troll who aren't a troll than there are actual trolls on the internet. There are a lot of people who are just ignorant, annoying, patently bothersome people. And that's their baseline. That's them as a person. That's not them trying to be. That is just them as a person. And over time, you get to learn to weed out who is actually trolling and who is just genuinely an asshole or an idiot. And, you know, the knee-jerk reaction of communities in general is like community members is to just label the person a troll. But I always try to correct them and say, you know, it's when it's not trolling. Because if everyone is a troll, then, you know, or if all of these cases are a troll, then it starts to be diluted because they're not all the same. It's kind of, you know, and now anything and everything can just be called a troll. Calling yourself a troll or calling somebody else a troll now is kind of the equivalent of being called out for being an idiot or saying something remarkably stupid or doing something remarkably stupid, and then just putting your hands up and being like, just joking, bro. Why you gotta be so upset? It's just a joke. It's not that serious, man. Why you gotta be upset? Like, that's what, when people just like label themselves or other people, they're just trolling. No, you're not. You're just genuinely a fucking asshole. And so nobody likes you, and that's fine. Maybe you want to go through life where everyone just thinks you're an asshole, or at best just tells you that they like you, and in reality they think you're a cunt. You know, and that's fine. But you gotta, you know, there's gotta be some nuance in this shit. So there's more of those people than actual trolls than I've come across in my time. But like as far as like a funny one, it is true. Like there's one in there, like there's the old like donation memes, you know, the wheelchair access symbol, and then the text to speech, having to regurgitate that over and over and over again is a pretty good meme. Or carrots is another one. Carrot and carrot and carrot and carrot and carrot. You know, it's another meme. How patriotic have you felt this month? As a Canadian, I guess. How patriotic have I felt this month? No more than usual, really. You know, as a baseline, I'm Team Canada. Always. Because, you know, to risk sounding like some sort of geezer, you know, I'm not saying, you know, let's go back to the 50s type shit like you find in the States sometimes, people talking about the good old golden era. I mean, we only have to go back like 20 or 25 years. You know, 90s and 2000s, even with all of the disruptive nature of world events that happened through the early 90s into the early 2000s and etc. Canada was a demonstrably, objectively, wildly different country in its actions and how it felt as a Canadian citizen. Dramatically different, like very, like starkly different. Random drainage in my nose. That's unfortunate. Yeah. So despite that, you know, I know what Canada is at its core, what its citizens want it to represent on average, and what it has historically, what it's known for around the world, or used to be, less so now. And we've definitely lost, the Canadian identity has been diluted substantially over the last 20 years or so. Not because of immigration or anything. Canada is by and large, and always has been, or at the very least, if you want to talk about modern Canada, since the early 80s or so, a very well-managed, immigrant-friendly country. And we've always wanted and enjoyed bringing people in and having them become folded in and become Canadian and contribute and be a member of the society. But we're handling it much differently now, and it's not having the same results it had in the past. And it is fracturing. It's resulting in fracturing, unintentionally, to some degree, fracturing communities and the general feel of Canada as a whole, as it's become a more and more increasingly talked about and divisive topic, in general, because it's difficult to talk out against any of it without somebody thinking that you don't like foreigners or something, when that's not necessarily the case so much as the who's getting in, how they're getting in, and how many at once, while we are already still struggling with other aspects of infrastructure and otherwise that we have to contend with. With this kind of what some people would call existential threat from the U.S. Government with the tariffs and whatnot, that whole shenanigans going on right now, obviously there has been a coming together, unified feeling in the country that has been lacking for quite some time, in terms of everyone wanting to, or many people wanting to get together and be a unified front and regain some of that Canadian identity in the face of this. And sometimes that's what is required to bring people together. People always talk about how it takes a catastrophe or some sort of thing, and oftentimes, unfortunately, war, for people to actually band together and not being divisive amongst themselves, and unproductive and otherwise in more peaceful times. And so we're experiencing a bit of that here in Canada right now. And it's a complicated mess. There's a lot of moving parts of how Canada got to this point. This is not something that, despite what some politicians may or may not try to sell you on, this is not something that is new. It's not something that just happened in the last 5 to 10 years. This is something that has been an accumulative factor for decades. The reality of the situation is that Canada, being next to the United States and having the United States as its primary trading partner, and and Canada's geological position in general, has been very beneficial and has not required us to. We haven't had a lot of impetus to grow our economy internally, and much more, and have much more. It's been much more. That's what I'm looking for. Attractive for our governments to pitch the idea of running the economy more on a global scale through the export predominantly of raw resource and otherwise, and not doing too much here at home, which is a necessity to a degree for a country of only, right now, and certainly less in the past, 40 million people. You don't have a big enough market to be producing goods from start to finish, no matter how much natural resources you have, and Canada has tons of them. You don't have the market to just sell stuff at home. You have to be able to sell abroad, and the more finished a product is, to some degree, the more difficult that can become. And so you have to strike a balance between, exporting various forms of processed raw material and actually generating some of those goods at home to be sold at the within the Canadian market. There are some particularly egregious examples of this, like gypsum, for example, being turned into being pulled out of the ground here, sent to the States to be turned into drywall, and then buying back the drywall. You have to understand, we're selling that to the U.S. at a Canadian dollar rate that is anywhere from 20 to 30%, to the downside to the U.S. dollar, and then buying back the drywall after production costs and margins at a U.S. dollar using Canadian dollars. And so you can see how that would dramatically multiply the cost of any given good in that kind of an environment very quickly. And so we've been lackadaisical and kind of we've been sitting back a little too much in terms of growing our own internal economy for a very long time. And this is actually showcased really well with a new hot button thing where our politicians, both sitting and otherwise, have been discussing this very novel idea of actual free trade between the provinces. And you might think, what the fuck does that mean? Why wouldn't you have free trade within your own country? And most people would also say, yeah, what the fuck? That makes sense. So interprovincially, there are a lot of where is Jeff? Jeff is gone? Okay, so I can't give you guys specifics. He had to leave. I can say that from what I know of at this time, things are okay, but he had to leave on short notice. And so he will give you more updates when that's available. But he had to leave in the early time of the podcast. That's why you're just seeing me here at this time, keeping people's dreams alive as they drive to work and come home tomorrow on a glorious Friday. But yeah, so you might think, why in the hell don't we have interprovincial trade? And the answer to that is, I don't know. But each province has a myriad of different ways in which it's different from the other in terms of how they handle certain things. Like, for example, the trades. Not all trades can work in all other provinces without having to retake or redo tests and whatnot for different codes in different provinces. Truck driving is handled differently. Different provinces have different weight limits. Different provinces have different times of day in which the truck drivers are allowed to drive, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole bunch of stuff. In fact, the joke about the Canadian Free Trade Agreement in terms of the interprovincial free trade is that there are more exceptions to the free trade than there are actual free trade line items. So that has also been a hindrance. There's a lot that the country has been able to get away with for a long time, and mostly it's politicians. But it's the old story of easy times can make for weak men, and hard times make hard men. No pun. It's a just kind of a reality. People will fall into that trap pretty easily. And at some point, from a patriotic kind of a standpoint, internal of Canada, at least what Canadians regard as their generalized form of patriotism, which is different from that of the States to a degree. Yeah, we lost our identity at some point, and it's just felt weird. So this current political environment is hostile. It is unpredictable. It is almost certainly going to come at the expense of the Canadian economy to a I would say, likely substantial degree. And it's all happening at a time of already, political instability within the country to begin with. So you're going to see an upswelling of Canadian pride and togetherness, both in terms of amongst many of the general population and amongst the premiers of the various provinces. But there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of risk of foreign interference right now. Right? There's a lot of people that are a lot of influential people that are trying to instill the idea that Alberta should separate from the country and join the U.S. right now. There's a lot of talk, more talk about Quebec also separating, which has been a thing for fucking my entire life and longer. But it's always coming up, and there's a lot of people with various interests that would benefit greatly from Alberta breaking off from Canada and joining the U.S., not least of which is, of course, the amount of oil that they have. But there's an underlying groundswell of anti-Canadianism that is currently drowned out by the collective Team Canada drive that's happening in the country. And how long will that drive continue to outpace it? I don't know. I hope it's for some time. I think that this could be it should be the closest thing to a minimal damage wake-up call for the government and the general population, voting population, voting participation and otherwise, and the democracy and the identity of Canada in general. I think this is the time, and I'll be very interested to see how stuff plays out here at home. In terms of in Canada, like what does the prime minister race look like now? The Conservatives have a clear majority in the polls at the moment, but it has been slowly being eroded as time goes on. The Conservatives have to change their messaging because Pierre can't just keep going up on stage and calling everyone carbon tax insert last name when nobody gives a fuck right now about the carbon tax so much as they're concerned about a myriad other much more existential threats to the country's economy, and so they have to pivot to that. So it's a long answer to your question, but it's a complicated one, and hopefully that answered it relatively well. But yeah, it's a crazy time. It is. It's a crazy time. It's wild, and I'll say this. Going to the various social media platforms, whether it's YouTube or Twitter or otherwise, any one of them, Facebook, otherwise. There is just a really concerning number of people on both sides in the U.S. and Canada that truly don't really I can't blame them, don't fully grasp what is happening. They don't really understand the gravity of some of this. They don't understand, and it's resulting in further divisiveness that does not need to be there. That's not helpful to anyone at all. And in many instances will simply end up having those very people be the ones that are affected the most negatively at the end of the day. So I'm hoping that we can weather this storm and learn and grow as a country. Canada has more natural resources than almost anyone else, and we have hardworking, overly educated people. On average, like this country is full of hyper-educated people. It's why we lose a lot to brain drain to the States. It's not we have Canada has missed its potential for decades, and I hope that this is a great opportunity for that to change. Let's see. Ace High, you can drive one car, any car, for 1 hour on any track in the world with a pro driver riding shotgun to help you not wreck it. I'm still wrecking it. What car do you choose? Bonus question, any specific track you'd like to experience? Shit. Man, I mean, Jeff owns his own fucking supercar. What the fuck is he gonna pick? He literally owns a GT4 RS, and what the fuck is he gonna drive? He's gonna drive his own car. I own a fucking RAV4, so I have many more choices on my side of the fence. I've got to say, 1998, 1999 Dodge Viper ACR would be my choice. I physically couldn't drive it. Most professional drivers can't drive it. I'd probably die, but it would be fucking glorious while it was happening. If I had to choose something slightly safer, to actually track, and not kill myself immediately, Also, let's assume that I can fit in it despite being 6'6" and all legs. I'm somewhere between a Lotus Evora and a Ferrari 455. Probably. Somewhere in there. It would also be super dope to get into an F40. Ferrari F40 would also be super dope. But yeah, somewhere in there. What tracks though? Ooh, Laguna Seca. For sure. I would, if I wasn't already killing myself on a track, then the Nürburgring would definitely kill me. So, Nordschleife, the the Widowmaker, as it were. What else? Honestly, there's probably just some swervy mountain drives in like Japan or some shit that would be super fucking dope. It's not even a track. Like that would also probably be just super dope to do that instead. But yeah, those two. I mean, it's my all-time favorite car is a Dodge Viper. But specifically, the body of the 98, 99, 2000 in that pocket. I can't remember what model year they switched away from it. That body, but the that ACR, it typically came in black, but you could with the two white racing stripes. But it would do, it was in less often the Viper blue and also in that Viper red. But that, that black, that body still, that was the body that still looked like a really sexy actual car, but it still embodied the idea of the snake head. The actual roof line and how they shaped it and whatnot. It gave that feel of the actual Viper snakehead itself. And I just loved it. It's just a fucking killer car, and just sounds so angry because it is angry. That car is angry about everything all the time, and it exists on pure rage and spite. And I love it, and it probably will set yourself on fire. But it'll be worth it. I believe, what was it? Jeremy Clarkson from Top Gear described the SRT-10, I think it was, or the Viper that he was reviewing at the time, which is like my least favorite Viper. But it was when the Viper started to get much more refined and not so unwieldy and crazy, but it was still completely insane. Like they had warning stickers on the SRT-10 for like, you could burn yourself getting out of the car, and the seat actually caught on fire from the side exhaust at one point. But like from a driving perspective, it was much more tame. And he described driving the Viper as smearing honey on Keira Knightley's thighs. And I will never forget that description. And I think we can all agree that sounds like a pretty fucking awesome time. So that's going to be my choice. The Blainer asks, have you ever said or did something to someone and immediately thought to yourself, what have I done? Bro, like a fucking, are you kidding me? Many times. for sure. You know, either because you just misspoke, you know, accidentally, like a literal mistake, slip of the tongue, wrong person, wrong place, wrong time, or you know, or it was more calculated, but you miscalculated the response. I mean, my God, dude, no question. You kidding me? Many times. Enough times that it would be hard to even pick them out. It's just lost in a sea of that shit. Last question. Hey, we got you here. 2.5 hours. Solo dreams out here. Hopefully this has been even mildly entertaining. Podcasts were never meant to be done by a singular person, so hopefully this was still entertaining for you guys. Steven asking for some drama content. Do you guys have any thoughts on the recent fiasco with Destiny, the StarCraft streamer, not the game? I wouldn't even call him a StarCraft streamer at this point. Tangentially related, are there some creators that just can't be canceled? I mean, I think there are many examples of not just creators, but celebrity of any kind, you know, whether like traditional celebrity or what some people call YouTube celebrities, like they call them micro celebrities, even though at this point, like, let's be honest, many of the YouTube celebrities are more well known. You know, you reach a critical mass and you've got like PR teams and, you know, you can weather a lot of storms. You can weather a lot of storms. No, you know, there are obviously lines that have been drawn in the sand over the years for various things, but you know, I think we've all seen many creators get out of situations that you know, everyone would have thought at some point there was just no way that they could possibly escape it. And then yet they do. As for like the Destiny thing, I only know like a little bit about it, because my timeline was, you know, just fucking chock full of it for a while. I watched a couple of videos to try to get context because I was seeing so much of it, of just like bits and pieces in you know, my various timelines. I just like, what the fuck is going on? And so I went and looked. I mean, you know, just as a baseline, I've quite literally never in my life been a fan of Destiny as a creator. I met him exactly one time in person. He probably doesn't even remember who the fuck I am. But we met one time in person, Jeff and I and him. I was at one of the StarCraft events and we met at the lobby of a hotel. And it was in relation, and we met, we wanted to talk because he had definitely said some salacious shit back in the day. You know, Jeff wanted to talk to him. So we did. And it was a very cordial fucking discussion. You know, we were grown men at the time, younger than now and with more hair, but grown men, wasn't crazy or anything. But even then, from that, you know, because even in that interaction that we had, that, you know, 30, 45-minute talk, he just always struck me like in a kind of a weird way. I was never a big fan. And I wasn't like a huge fan of how he conducted himself. Everyone can conduct themselves however the fuck they want, but and I'm sure lots of people have a problem with how Jeff and I conduct ourselves. But yeah, I was just never a huge fan of him. But I went and looked to see what this was all about, because really, for those who don't know, I mean, Destiny was a StarCraft streamer and content producer to start, and then at some point he spun out into internet debate formats, and then that kind of expanded into general and prolific political commentary. And that's kind of been his content now for a long while, a combination of political commentary and continued kind of debate format in various forms. And he's huge now in that sphere. He's a name that comes up constantly, so he's done quite well by it. This whole thing with him, though, and this isn't the first time we've seen this stuff. I'm not going to go into details on it, because if you don't already know, you can look into it. but like, I feel like at this point, that kind of stuff has already been known about him for years publicly. And it wouldn't even be like the first example, if memory serves, of this at least being talked about. So that this stuff is being surfaced to any degree is perhaps not shocking. The this it's what's really unfortunate to me is when this kind of stuff happens with any kind of YouTube celebrity, it just seems to drag so many people into it, and it never ends well, right? Because when you think about it, there are people that could be involved, but they're as close to innocent as a person could be in some given drama thing, whatever the fuck, right? And if it's a big enough piece of drama, or the content creator is big enough that is involved at the core of it, then like everyone in that content creator's sphere is now dragged in as a plethora of other, usually smaller but even sometimes bigger or equivalent sized content farming channels, talking heads, then go and just they dig everything out, whether it's relevant or not, whether it's true or not, without any real basis sometimes, and they just throw it all out there. And so it ends up just encapsulating this huge swath of people that are probably not even fucking involved in the actual drama of the moment that everyone has, where it started. And it's this weird knock-on effect of fucking crazy shit. And that's the thing that kind of sucks. It's kind of reminiscent, but I mean, like, the thing to keep in mind too is that I think people have to some degree figured out with how many content creators have been caught up in various crazy fucking dramatic circumstances. And the bigger they get, the more likely it seems that it's going to be, a thing that happens. I think it's safe to say that that the celebrity that one gains from internet celebrity is, and the money that can come with it, and the perceived power that comes with that as well, is similar to what you see with other celebrity or people that come into a lot of money very quickly in any other form, whether it's a professional athlete or a somebody in movies or whatever. Depending on what the person was used to from a lifestyle perspective, you can go from somebody who was living paycheck to paycheck in an apartment with 5 other people, with no real major prospects in life, and then you gain popularity, and all of a sudden you have $50 million in the bank in like a year and a half, 2 years. Something happens to people when that goes on. Well, not everyone, but like what seems to be the majority, and then how those people express that change in them can be different, and many times it seems to result in this kind of grotesque fuckery that we see in many content creators. Like, think of like the Minecraft content creator, endless fucking field of drama with like the grooming stuff or whatever the hell else, and there's just so many examples of this stuff happening. So when it comes to the Destiny stuff, it is the disappointment of it not being the disappointment of it not being surprising is like as disappointing that it's happening at all, if you know what I mean. Like, it's kind of like, you would rather be surprised that somebody in like a Destiny would be capable of this. You would rather be surprised and then disappointed about it happening than looking at it and being like, it's another day on the internet. It's another content creator doing some weird shit. So, you know, that's a it's kind of just my take on it in general. It's sad, it's unnecessary. And this extends to even like lesser, you know, things as well, but it's indicative of like the content farming culture that's happening right now. And we've talked about it before with like the OnlyFans thing, you know, with Pirate Software's shenanigans that got two characters perma-killed in the hardcore WoW, you know, content creators guild OnlyFans. And just the absolute, like, that happened, and then it was just content farm city of like digging up everything about Thor you could possibly come up with, and it was just content farm fucking central. And he went from like, you know, the king of the nerds to like a fucking pariah for like half of the fucking YouTube community in like 2 weeks. And all of this, by the way, again, over a video game in which a couple of characters in a permadeath server died. And these are, you know, you have to keep in mind too that the people involved in this, these are not like 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old content creators that are new to the game, just recently wealthy, you know, doing their thing. They're new, everything, all of these experiences are new and they're reacting poorly. These are fucking middle-aged men. These men are using like Rogaine and hair dye to hold back the clock right now. Losing their minds to this degree over this situation. If that's not an indictment on where the content farming culture and whatnot is in general, and content in many communities are, I don't know what is. I mean, anyone who watches Jeff or GTA RP in general will also know and have seen this same phenomenon. People get fucking weird when online with their ego and their money. It's nuts, bro. It's crazy. They're playing a video game for money. You are the people in OnlyFans. I don't think there's more than a couple of people in OnlyFans who aren't multimillionaires. Right? Like, are there any? I don't think so. I think this is like an invite only, you know, kind of like you have to be someone to some degree, or at least know someone, or, you know, or be known by somebody to get into these are all multi-millionaires. And this is what they choose to lose their shit over. It's crazy. So yeah, it's not shocking that you know, the whole Destiny thing is a thing either. It's just kind of an extension of a similar problem, you know, stemming from celebrity, power, money, and what it does to various people and how they express that change in them when it happens to them. And Destiny clearly did not handle it well, and continues to not. Crazy. Anyway, that was the last question. And that's all I got for you. For those of you just showing up wondering where Jeff was, he had to leave in the first little piece of the podcast for an emergency. The last news I have, everything is still fine, but he will you know, keep you guys abreast of the situation. Nothing to be concerned about. But he did have to leave the podcast for today. He wouldn't have left otherwise. StarCraft content, I will say, will be another day or two delayed because we won't likely be able to record this afternoon as we would normally. But you know, rest assured, you will be getting more of your StarCraft content soon, and hopefully you can enjoy the stuff that's already out there. I will say this, shout out to you guys. You know, the channel's been growing like crazy. We've had 1.2 million views in the last 28 days. I didn't think Lag TV had those numbers. I gotta be honest, I didn't think Lag TV had those numbers left in it. 1.2 million views in the last 28 days, and almost 1,000 new subscribers in the last 28 days doing StarCraft content in the year of our Lord 2025. That's phenomenal. Jeff and I are thrilled that you guys are as engaged and enjoying the StarCraft content as you have been. We hope that you continue to be, because we make money off of this, but we get a lot of our joy from you guys enjoying our content. That's the reality of it. It is awesome to go into the comment section and read all these positive comments about people just loving the videos and laughing and having a good time. That shit's great, and we hope that you guys continue to do so. We've got more coming for you, but for today, that is all for this week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed yourselves despite this being a solo cast. And until I see you guys and Jeff sees you on the next one, please stay safe out there. Have a good one. And peace.